So I just got back from a soul care conference called Refresh, and let me tell you, I needed it. My soul felt like an iPhone on 2% battery with 17 apps running.
iPad is at 1%. What do I do? Kill your app.
Have you ever been there? Yeah, this conference hit a little different. I walked in thinking this will be great. I'll get some deep soul care quotes. Maybe I can post them. And I walked away realizing I've got some stuff to work on. So today I want to share with you the 3 biggest things that I learned. And don't worry, it's not going to be some boring recap. We're talking real life, gut punch, make you rethink everything kind of lessons. So let's just jump right into it. So here's the deal. We all feel this gap between where we are and where we should be, right? And instead of trusting God, what do? We try to duct tape ourselves together, reading self-help books or podcasts or overscheduling our lives, pretending we have it all figured out. Spoiler alert, it does not work. I know you know that, and I certainly know that. At this conference, Megan Fate Marshman, who is one of my top 5 favorite communicators, talked about how we think we need to climb up to God, like he's up there waiting for us to figure it out. But no, he climbs down to meet us. She talked about Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which is a classic verse. This is a passage that God used to completely change my life upside down right as I was entering into high school. It's what set the trajectory of me ending up now in almost 32 years of ministry. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. But let's be real. Most of us lean on our own understanding like it's a broken Target shopping cart, don't we? And our prayers, they wander all over the place. But instead of feeling guilty about it, she said something that stuck with me. Talk to God about what your mind is wandering to. That's probably what he wants you to pray about anyway. I was like, that's such a good thing, because when I pray, my mind will wander all over the place.
O'Reilly's Auto Parts.
To talk to God about why I'm thinking about that, why I'm wandering to that, that's so good. And then she posed this question, and I want to pose it to you. What's keeping you from fully trusting the Lord with fill in the blank? What's that thing that pops into your mind when I ask that question? What is keeping you from fully trusting the Lord with? So my takeaway from this session was stop climbing. Let God meet you where you are. And if you want more passion from him, ask him to help you. He actually answers that prayer. All right, the second thing I pulled out. Face your pain or it will leak out in weird ways.
And I'm leaking.
Let's talk about pain. We all have it, right? But instead of dealing with it, we bury it under distractions. Work, Netflix, snacks at 11 p.m. We all have our coping mechanisms, don't we? But here's the truth. Pain doesn't disappear. It just leaks out in other ways. And at Refresh, Dave Powers, who's a friend of mine, spoke on this, and he talked about how we experience big losses and medium losses and even tiny losses that we don't acknowledge. And instead of processing those pains, we shove them down in that junk drawer like in our kitchen that we pretend doesn't even exist, right? But Jesus doesn't ignore our pain. He meets us in it. Dave challenged us to ask this question. Jesus, what's something I've buried that I need to bring to you? And let me tell you, I did not like that answer, but man, was it necessary. And here's the thing. Grieving and forgiving aren't the same thing, but both are necessary. And sometimes healing starts with just speaking blessing over someone, even before we feel it. And maybe even before we mean it. Dave said this, your undealt with pain is impacting those around you. It's impacting your leadership, and it's impacting your relationship. Jesus sees the future healed you. I was like, oh, that's so good. I can definitely see where my undealt with pain is impacting all of those spaces and people. So here's my takeaway from that session. Your pain isn't meant to be ignored. It's meant to be healed. And Jesus is ready to do that work if you let him. All right, here's the last thing I pulled away. Sabbath isn't a luxury, it's a weapon. All right, confession. I used to think of Sabbath like the way I think of meal prepping. Great idea, but who has time for that?
I ain't got time for that.
The reality is most church leadership is terrible at Sabbath and does not push it, even if they say they do. Most church staffs I've worked on will talk about, oh, Sabbath, Sabbath, Sabbath. But very few people, lead pastors included, model it really well. Zach Meerkrebs, who spoke on this session, hit me with this truth bomb. Sabbath isn't just about taking a break. It's about fighting a lie. And that lie says everything depends on you. Wow. We don't like to hear that, right? We think if I stop, everything falls apart. But God's like, hey, buddy, you're not in charge of the universe. I am. Hebrews 4 talks about entering God's rest. And at this conference, he asked, who's narrating your life? God, yourself, or the enemy? Because if it's not God, we're probably believing something that's untrue.
Coming this fall, a film about one person who refuses to rest starring you, running on 3 hours of sleep and 4 cups of coffee.
Sabbath is the way we train ourselves to trust God. It's a weapon against the need to prove ourselves. It's this weekly reminder that God is working even when we're not. Years ago, I talked with a youth pastor who didn't take any Sabbath because he said, the devil never takes a day off. Why should I? To which I responded, is it better to model your life after the devil or after God, who didn't need to rest and yet he did? So my takeaway from this one was, rest isn't a reward. It's an act of trust, and you don't have to earn it. So real talk, which of these hit home for you? Do you need to stop striving and let God meet you where you are? Do you need to actually face some buried pain? Or do you need to start taking rest seriously and stop acting like the CEO of the universe? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. And if this video encouraged you, hit that like button, subscribe button for more. Check out this video. I think this video right here will encourage you. And until next week, remember that God has got this. See ya.